Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa. You can usually find me at the Squishable Store in downtown Chicago at Water Tower Place, but today I'm here to show you how to make a bikini for your favorite undercover squishable. It's still quarantine for a lot of areas and we're having beach fantasies because of the warm weather, and at least you can do that with your favorite undercover. You don't need that much in order to make this project. You need some 1/8 inch elastic to attach the bikini top, you need some 1/4 inch elastic to attach the bikini bottom, and you need some fabric. If you're going to do 2 different types of fabric for the outside and the lining, you need 2 10 by 10 squares. If you're just going to use one fabric for all of it, it's just a 20 inch by 10 inch square. You can download the paper instructions at squishable.com/s/ACTY, and you can download the written instructions, which also include a pattern for both the bikini top and the bikini bottom. So now that you know what you need to get started, let's start working on the bikini. To get started on your bikini, you're going to need some fabric. If you're going to use the same fabric for the outside of your bikini as for the lining, you just need 1 sheet that is 10 inches tall and 20 inches wide. If you're going to do 2 different types of fabric, you'll want a 10 by 10 square of each. So the first thing that you want to do is fold up that fabric in half. Then, if you've gotten the pattern from the website, you'll notice that the bikini bottom is in 2 parts, so you just want to cut those out and then tape them together at the dotted and the solid lines, and then place that on your fabric, and then cut out the bikini top pattern, place that on the fabric, and then we're actually just going to trace around, and you'll do that twice for the bikini top. So once you'll sneak it here, and then you'll also sneak another triangle in here to get 4 pieces that you need for the bikini top. Now that I've traced my pattern onto the fabric, and you can hopefully see some of the faint pencil lines on the fabric, I'm actually just going to pin both of the layers together, and then I'm going to cut the pattern out of the fabric. And I'm pinning it just because I want both sides to be the same and not to deal with any kind of askew pattern placement, because sometimes when you're cutting, things get a little offset, but pinning keeps that from happening. And now that the pins are in place, it's time to trim the pattern. Now that the pieces of the pattern have been cut out from the fabric, first, you'll want to notice that I drew the hole for the tail. You don't need to care about this right now, but you will in later steps. What you will want to do right now is start stitching the bikini. So start with the bikini bottom. You'll be doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you'll want to do a straight stitch around almost the entire edge of the bikini. I like to leave probably 2 inch, 3 inch gap, not quite at the center, but kind of towards the center of the back of the bikini. And that's just because once this is stitched in place, you're going to be turning it inside out. So let's get sewing. Once you've finished sewing around the edge of your bikini bottom, you can set that aside for now, and it's time to start sewing the bikini tops. You'll notice on the pattern that I've marked where the top point of the bikini top is. The longest edge is your bottom. So when you're sewing, you're only going to be sewing 2 sides of it. This short side you're going to ignore for now, but you're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the bottom edge and then the side edge of the bikini tops, both sets of triangles. Once you've done all of your straight stitching along the edges, it's time to start clipping corners. And we're doing this because you're going to be turning both these sets of triangles and the bikini bottom inside out. And this is just going to get rid of bulky fabric that would mess up some of these finer points on the inside. I'm actually going to probably cut this down even more. And again, I'm doing the same on the bikini bottom. And aside from just cutting the corners off of the edges, I'm also going to be just doing a couple cuts on some of these curves. And that just means that when I turn this inside out, the bikini bottom is gonna lay right. If I didn't do this, there might be some weird kind of like bulking up at the top. All right, now that I've done the trimming, it's time to turn the bikini bottom and the bikini top inside out. So you'll notice that it's harder to turn it inside out on some of these narrower edges. You can just grab a chopstick or any kind of stick to help you kind of push those out to where they need to be. Once you've turned the bikini bottom inside out, it's time to work on the bikini top. Once you finish turning everything inside out, it's time to start seaming up these open edges. We're going to start with the bikini bottom, and what we're going to do is a ladder stitch along this open edge. So I already have a needle and thread. It's knotted at the end, and I am going to sneak it inside the bikini bottom. I'm going to have it overlap a little bit with the sewing machine stitches. And then I'm just going to pull it through, pull it tight. And now I'm about to do a ladder stitch. And if you've never done a ladder stitch before, what you do is I'm on one side of the fabric, and then I'm going to insert the needle on the other side, and I'm doing probably like 1/8 inch stitches. Pull it through, being careful not to loop the edge of the bikini. And then I'm going back to that first side. I'm going to insert maybe like 1/8 of an inch along, pull it through. And so the stitches look like rungs of a ladder as you go back and forth. Once you've gotten to the opposite side of that opening in the fabric, and being mindful of those sewing machine stitches that might have gotten loose, I like to do a little bit of overlap with the machine stitches just to kind of have that secured in place for sure. And then what I'm going to do is make a knot in one of the stitches on the edge. To secure the thread in place. And then I'm actually going to run the needle through the inside of the bikini bottom just to hide that thread. I'm going to pull it a little tight, clip it, and then it's disappeared. Once the bikini bottom is all stitched up, what we're actually going to do is look at the two bikini top pieces, and we are going to sew them together at the points. And again, I really like just doing a ladder stitch. I'm going to sneak this needle in through one of the triangles, down towards close to that point. And then pull it tight. And then I'm going to hold it up next to one of the, on the other side of the triangles. I'm going to put the points together. And then I'm going to ladder stitch. So I've, you know, the needle has come through this side. Now I'm going to go through the opposite side, close to that stitch edge. And I'm doing tiny stitches here. And I'm trying to be careful not to let these triangles flip. And again, tiny little stitch on the original side, and then connect that with a tiny stitch on the second side. And I've pulled this apart so you can kind of see the stitches, but I'm just going back and forth. An option at this point, if you have like a tiny little button and you want to just secure these two triangles together, you can weave through the button, just position it over the two triangles and then stitch that in place. And that will hide any additional stitches. All right, and once you're done, you can just knot the thread, and I like to find something near the edge so I can hide the thread on the inside of the piece. So I'm just knotting on that stitch, and then I'm going to weave my needle through the triangle just to hide the thread, and then trim it. So the next step is folding in the edges of the bikini top and then ladder stitching them closed. But before we do that this time, we're going to be attaching the elastic. So set that down, grab your length of 1/8 inch elastic, and you should have 31 inches, and you can just fold that in half, cut the fold. And one of these you're going to set aside for the time being. Now, the edge of the bikini, you want to fold about 1/2 inch into the inside of that triangle. And it might get a little fussy, but once you have that about in place, and again, we're being mindful of which side is the top part of that bikini and which is that bottom edge, you're going to take your elastic, one end of it, and you're going to just slide it in. Again, I do about 1/2 inch of elastic inside. And then for now, I'm going to pin this in place. Okay. And then you're going to take your other piece of elastic and you're going to sneak it into the bottom edge, and you are also going to pin that in place. And it doesn't have to line up completely with the bottom edge, but I am kind of persnickety, so I'm going to make sure that it does. Okay, now you have this in place, it's time to ladder stitch up the open edge of the bikini top. And I have thread that's already knotted, and again, I'm gonna try to sneak up from the inside of the triangle to the corner, and because of the pin and all the bulk, I might have to come up on the opposite side, work down and back. But I think I can actually, yep, sneak it right in the corner. Pull up the thread. And as we're ladder stitching, we're also going to be weaving through the elastic. So the first stitch is just going to go through fabric. Now, since I'm pinching this in place, I'm less worried about the elastic coming out, so I'm actually going to take out this pin. And then I am going to ladder stitch through the edge of the elastic, and then pick up the opposite side of the bikini. I'm doing these small ladder stitches that you can see. And then I'm going to weave again back through the elastic and then through the fabric. And I'm just going to work up that open edge back and forth. And again, once I reach this side, I'm going to pull that pin out because I'm just going to be pinching this in place with my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to finish up the ladder stitches. And from here, I can weave through the elastic and then do a stitch. And then weave through the elastic again. Into the fabric. And then finish that last ladder stitch on the very edge. And then from here, I'm just going to find a stitch where I can anchor a knot to, and then run that into the inside of the bikini top and trim the excess away. For this next part, you have to be pretty mindful of the elastic, because what we're going to do is take the elastic from the top of one side of the bikini, and we're going to be attaching it to the open edge of the opposite side of the bikini. So again, start by folding in the fabric about 1/2 inch. And then take the elastic from the top part of the bikini and insert the opposite edge into the top part of this side of the bikini. And just be careful that you don't twist the elastic. And again, for peace of mind, I'm just going to pin this in place. And then the elastic on the bottom edge of the bikini, you are going to be sneaking in to the bottom edge on the opposite side. And again, I am going to pin this in place. And now once you've got that pinned, it's time to do the ladder stitch in the same way that you did on the opposite side. Once you've finished stitching up the other end of the bikini, your bikini top is done and you can set it aside. Now it's time to work on attaching the elastic to the bikini bottom. But before we do that, we need to create the tail hole. So you'll see I've stenciled around where the tail should poke through, but you're not going to just be able to cut this without all the fabric fraying. What you want to do is do a buttonhole stitch or a satin stitch on your sewing machine all the way around the hole. The other option is to embroider around the edge with a needle and thread. Once you've done the buttonhole stitch around the edge of the hole, it's time to remove the fabric inside. You can use scissors. I'm just going to use a seam ripper, and I'm going to just cut a little bit of the fabric, and then I'm going to go in with scissors and trim the rest. All right, so once that fabric is removed, it's time to start attaching the elastic on the sides of the bikini bottom. You'll want to cut 2.5 inch pieces of 1/4 inch elastic. And you'll notice that the bikini bottoms kind of form like an eye. So what you want to do is connect one of the posts on the eye to the post on the opposite side. So to get started, I'm just gonna work on what I've decided is the underside of the bikini bottom. And I'm just gonna pin this in place. So there's a fair amount of overlap on the interior. And I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. And then at this point, if you even want to like grab your Squishable undercover and test out the pattern just to see if it fits properly, this is a good time. Because all of them are pretty much the same size, but you might notice that some might be a little portlier or a little skinnier than others. So just kind of eyeballing it, it looks about the same. So I am going to take this off, set my corgi aside, and then attach the additional piece of elastic. So again, I'm overlapping a fair amount, but we're going to be stitching this in 2 places in order to secure the elastic in place. Once the elastic has been pinned in place, it's time to stitch. So you'll want to do 2 rows of straight stitches on either side of both sides of the bikini. So I like to do maybe like 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from the very edge of that little eye prong, and then maybe another 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch down, just to make sure that it's secure, because this is probably going to get the most tension on it, because this is where the elastic is. And that's it. Once you've attached the elastic to the bottom part of your bikini, you are ready to live out some beach fantasies with your favorite undercover. Get some sunglasses, of course. Protect those eyes. It's bright out there. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll be checking pretty regularly, and I'll see you next time.